was 16 years of age when I had Jalen. That's how I actually found out about my first cancer. My first two battles was a first diagnosis and a reoccurrence of what they call GTD, which is gestational trophoblastic disease. I got to the bone marrow transplant point. It was actually my third battle with cancer. I was diagnosed with AML. All through my life, I was the average person. I went to school, graduated, I did all of that, but when I was diagnosed with cancer the first time, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm 16, I have a baby, and I have cancer. That's not your average. The first thing that came through my mind when they told me I had or needed a bone marrow transplant was, what was a bone marrow transplant? I thought it was something as simple as a blood transfusion. I thought it was something as simple. I go to the doctor, they give me my blood transfusion, and I go home and I'm back to my energetic self. But that was not the case.
So a transplant is not a very short, quick fix for whatever the issue is. The transplant day is obviously just one day. You get the transplant that day. There's a period beforehand when you have to go through a series of tests to make sure you're ready for the transplant. Then there's a period of a week or so where you get chemotherapy and or radiation. Then you get the transplant. But then it's really about a year of recovery to anticipate.
I wish someone was there saying, hey, look at me, I've been through this, and it's okay. Because just having a bone marrow transplant is scary within itself. It is okay to want to know, because it's your body, and the doctors can tell you what they know from their perspective, but you also as a patient have to not be scared to let them know how you feel. Having a living will was very hard, but it was the best thing I could have did, not only for me, but for my son, because it gave my family some sort of understanding of what I would want, because if something was to happen to me, that could kind of ease the pain for them of how to go about, taking care of my son. I've signed many a doctor's notes, saying it's okay to cut me here and do this. But signing that living will and then to have it go notarized, those two things put your whole life into perspective. It took me about 20 minutes to actually sign my name on the line. My son Jalen was my main reason for fighting as hard as I did. Not only, fighting in the hospital, night after night, battling the depression and the sleepless nights, the restless nights, the worrying days. He became my reason for striving. We were riding in the car one day, and I was like, well, Jalen, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, you have to be good or Santa's not going to bring you anything. And he said, I didn't want anything from Santa. He said, I got what God was going to bring me. And I said, well, what is that, Jalen? He said, me and God had a secret a long time ago. He said, I told God that all I wanted was my mommy for Christmas. He said, and here you are. The relationships with my mother and my sisters are tremendously strong. We were always supportive of each other, but once I had my bone marrow transplant, they took on the responsibility of motherhood for me, in the sense that my son couldn't live with me. My sister stepped in and, they got Jalen ready, or they came over, and sat with me. They cried with me. They stayed in the hospital with me. I learned, going through all this, that tomorrow was never promised to me, So that I learned to appreciate them a lot more. The why you got my jeans on really wasn't as important, I seen in my mother the woman that I hope to be as a mother. She was the one person, that wiped my tears, and that just let me, and she was the one that had all the answers to my but why me questions, and a mother's love is just so unconditional.
You are going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be sad, you're going to cry, you're going to pray, you're going to do a lot of things that a mom does because this is your child that, is going through this. And as a typical mother, when your child hurts, you hurt.
From where I started from, nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he's brought me this far to leave me. I've been singing since I was 2, so music has always been my comfort zone, but music was the one place I could go to just kind of drift off and go to not be me for a while.
Going through a transplant is really difficult, and everyone has a different way of coping. I think the important thing is to express how you're feeling to your family and friends. Some people will watch videos, some people will listen to their iPod or music. It really is an individual thing about how you're going to cope, but it's important to ask others to help you so that you can get through it.
My advice to young people that are going through transplant would be to, first of all, be obedient, because a lot of times at such a young age we get hard-headed and defiant. Be obedient, not only to your body, but be obedient to the doctors. They're not there for their health, they're there for yours, and another thing that I would tell them is it's okay. It's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be confused, because your life has been altered tremendously, But the one words of encouragement that I would have for you is that this too shall pass. After transplant, I experienced a lot of fatigue the first 6 to 8 weeks. After transplant, I experienced a few mouth sores. After transplant, you have to learn the new you. And when I say that, I mean that before you could get up, jump, run outside, barefoot and just have at it. But after transplant, you have to become cautious. The fertility issues, I was blessed to have Jalen at the age that I had Jalen, because after having a bone marrow transplant, I can no longer have children because of all the chemotherapy. Having unsafe sex, to me, whether you've been through everything that I've been through or not, is never an option.
So despite the issues of decreased fertility after transplant, it's still very important to practice safe sex. Remember, safe sex isn't just about not getting pregnant, it's about not getting certain infections. HIV, gonorrhea, syphilis, and other infections. And again, after transplant, your immune system is very suppressed. The last thing you want is an infection like that for a suppressed immune system could be life-threatening. So it's very important to practice safe sex. And it's very important to talk to your doctor about when it's a good time to start having sex after a transplant.
Now have a boyfriend whom I love because he loves me, and in spite of and because of everything that I've been through.
Oh, what isn't there about Danielle? I think the thing that caught me about Danielle first was her smile. She has a beautiful smile. Beyond that, she's just probably the most giving and caring person that I've ever met in my life, and I can't imagine my life without her. My advice to a boyfriend or a girlfriend would be to be supportive as you can, and first of all, listen. Listen to what your girlfriend or your boyfriend has to say to you. Be open-minded, be supportive, notice the little things. Little things mean a lot to people, and we never really realize that till someone has gone through something traumatic, and the littlest or the smallest thing that you do for them can make their day.
Life for me after transplant is so much better than I thought it would be. Your cancer doesn't determine who you are. My future holds hope. I'm blessed to say that I am a survivor, and I want to, go to college. I want to raise my son. I want to be married. I want to have a family, and those simple things, that so often are taken for granted have become so important to me, I hopefully in the future can be the hope for somebody else. I hopefully can be the hope for somebody that necessarily wasn't there for me. I want to be the support that someone has regarding bone marrow transplant, because this completely altered my life.
And every day is a good day when you're a cancer survivor.